you have to get them to get to the part where they're actually identifying the comments. They'll say 60%, 70%, 100%. It's like, okay, if it's 60, why not 100? Because now you're interested. Once you're interested in someone, they like, okay, they're listening to me, and I'm not talking over them. I'm listening, so I'm talking 20%, and they're doing 80%. Now you have genuine dialogue where the person feels relaxed. And once you just say, what would be the reason for this confidence? And they'll say, well, tax cuts are good for the economy. Okay.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. All right, and with that, joining us here on the Brian Nichols Show today, we're talking about controlling what you can control. So you've heard that here before in the Brian Nichols Show. Joining me here on the show, Will Young. Welcome to the program. How you doing?
Hey, thank you, Brian, for having me. I appreciate it. I'm doing great. Doing phenomenal, actually.
Oh, I love to hear it. Phenomenal, great, amazing, wonderful. Just toss on the was it superlatives? Is that what that's called? Doesn't matter. We're here today talking about what we can control, and with that, controlling what we can control. But Will, before we dig into that, plus finances, plus looking at uncertain economic futures, I want the audience to better understand who you are and kind of where you're starting out in today's conversation, what you're bringing to the table. So Will, do us a favor, introduce yourself here to the audience.
Okay, I'm an industry expert. I've been in the field for 21 years. I'm a certified financial planner with my own private practice. My specialty is really behavioral psychology and finance, everything based on Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, Nobel laureates who won the Nobel laureate in economics. I'm a surfer and a devout Stoic, and I think all three of these things, the markets, the economy, and Stoicism and surfing, all really focus on the dichotomy of control, of knowing what we can control and what we can do versus what we cannot control, and focusing on the things that really shape us internally so that we're strong, whether it's out there 1,000 meters out in the water, whether it's in the markets and it's volatile. What do we do? How do we make decisions under extraordinarily unique economic situations, or just with our day-to-day lives, with being that inner citadel, which is the core Stoic philosophy. So I think, that's who I am, and that's what I try to bring every day to people. And I want to share that story with as many people to make smart decisions, not emotional decisions.
Hear, hear. Well, and by the way, I my one employee who I know is right now, his ears are definitely ringing. David, good to see you, buddy. David is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And back when I used to work with him one-on-one, we would do our one-on-ones weekly, right? And he would always come in. He'd be like, oh, Brian, name sales guy here. He didn't handle my deal yet. Like I booked the meeting and he's just not moving forward with it. Like, what should I do? And I'm like, David, chill. Let's control what we can control, right? And whether it was the deal that the guy wasn't processing yet, whether it was a girlfriend who wasn't getting a phone call back, whatever it may be, right? I'd always go back to control what you can control. And I was actually just out at my old stomping grounds, and I saw him, and I was chatting with him, and he just unprovokingly was like, hey, you remember you used to teach me control what you can control? He's like, man, that has become like my motto. Every single day when I start to get overwhelmed or anxious or stressed out over whatever's happening in life, in business, in the world, right? So that idea, but plus the ideas of Stoicism, Will. And this is something, I've over the past few years really started to dig into myself, being a new dad, but also just looking at the world.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And like just looking at the world though, right? Like, man, there's lots of frustrations out there. There's lots of angst out there. And yet it feels like, it is a perfect opportunity to take a step back, right? And almost recalibrate to your perspective of controlling what you can control, but also really starting to think through things and trying to put things not so much in a, like, you have the bathtub, but let's start off with a glass of water, right? Like you can't drink it all at once. So Will, like, help paint the picture here. Like, what are you finding work beyond just the ideas of controlling what you can control and Stoicism? Like, practical applications to real life, not only from a personal standpoint, but also what you're seeing help your clients in the financial space.
The first thing I try to do is I try to pay attention to the conversation we're having. And then there's a great metaphor called "This is Water," if you've heard, by David Foster Wallace. And there's two fish swimming, and there's an old fish that sees him and he goes, "How's the water today, boys?" And they go, "What's water?" Because you're essentially trying to figure out where they are and what they know, and you're calibrating people. The number one thing is, it's not what we know, because our definition of courage may be different than their definition of courage, and their definition of success is different than. So when you're asking, what type of conversation are we in, and paying attention to that, and then kind of understanding people's goals. This is important because you're going to notice some people require a lot of hand holding initially, and then other people don't. They're like, I'm a long-term investor. I'm not worried about all this stuff. They're the person that's not overly worried if there's a hurricane coming because they've done everything right ahead of time and they're mentally strong. Other people are running out to buy every egg possible and milk, even though they haven't. So you need to determine.
Go buy your toilet paper. Same thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I delivered quite a few toilet paper there because I have a bidet. So I highly recommend them. But that's understanding and then getting to that emotional component. We often don't listen to people. And when you mentioned your kid, kids basically have their own little thing where they're running off trying to go God knows where. And you're like, you don't know anybody. Where are you going? You know what I mean? But you can't get mad at them. That's kind of the thing. And you control yourself.
I watch, by the way, I watch Bluey a lot because I'm a dad. Okay. Right. And, it's funny when you mention like kids just know what they know. Cause I look at Bluey, I watched Bluey with my daughter, and like, that is exactly the way it's articulated in the show. And as a parent, you get it, right? Like you see it and you're like, oh yeah, like it's just kids being kids, but it's all contextual, right? It's kids being kids based on what they know, the world that they've grown up in, the things they themselves have seen, touched, smell, heard, right? Like, but once you get older, and man, this is where we all get jaded, right? Like once the real world kicks in, you start to lose some of that wonder. You start to lose some of that just like status quo joy that we seem to have, that excitement over the silliest of things. And I watch my daughter watching Bluey, and I see that. I see the just pure innocence and joy. And then I look to, I look to my friends and my coworkers, and I see the frustrations. I see the stressors of everyday life. It's on their face. It's the way they hold themselves. It's the way that they present themselves on social media, the doom, the gloom, right? And I guess going back to the idea of controlling what you can control, like when you look at kids, they're not even thinking so much control what I can control. It's just like, it is what is, right? I mean, like it's such a different context. So what can we learn from kids, Will? I know you talk about going out on surfboards, and that's helped you kind of, in your world, understand how to approach, some of life's biggest obstacles. But is there something we can learn from kids as well of how to like actually enjoy and be in the moment?
Yes, that is something we all can do, because you can sit in a car and they can just aimlessly daydream. And I think taking a walk every day, or doing something where you can meditate on your own thoughts and keep just kind of no thoughts, or just being present. Kids are always present. If you'd go sit on a curb or go out in the backyard and throw a ball, you weren't thinking about anything. And you need that brain. So limiting what you use for news, 30 minutes or whatever it's going to be, will allow you to focus on other things, because a lot of people leave those in the backgrounds. And I tell them all the time, take nutrient dense information. Don't allow ESPN or political news or financial news to be on TV 4 or 5 hours, because it's just polluting your mind. It's like eating junk food. It's junk food for the mind. What you want is to say, I'm going to set out and do this. And then the other time, I'm going to do something enjoyable for myself, whether it's reading a book, a comic book or fictional or something, because you want your mind to be off duty and not on high alert. Kids do that all day long. They'll go from one item to the next. And I do respect that, being able to sit on the curb and say, how long has it been, Mom? 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Remember those days?
Yep.
Now you're like, oh my God, 30 minutes, I don't know, just time changes when you get older. And I think just having a break from that is very important. You can only control what you do. You can control sitting in a quiet room. You can control some breathing exercises. You can control what you put in your mind or what you listen to. Sometimes just sitting in the car with no noise is a break, is a joy. It's just like, man, this is nice. So
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, and by the way, like moment of like self-reflection for yours truly, because I struggle with that. I struggle with not being, call it efficient, call it productive, right? Like I am one of those guys who I'll be doing dishes and I'll have one earbud in and I'll be listening to some news podcast because I'm like, oh, I'm talking about XYZ topic with an expert in economics or whatever the topic may be tomorrow. So I need to be up to date on all this. And I'll listen to, 3 different versions of that argument from 3 different types of folks. Like we'll get a conservative, a moderate, and a liberal. And I'll listen to all 3 of those takes on a certain topic just to feel like I'm prepared, or like I'm doing something where I'm out at the park, and this is where I really gotta get better. And I'll be like, oh, I'll have a headphone in. I'll listen to something as I'm playing with my kid, and like that right there. As you were kind of outlining, like just be present. Like don't feel you have to be doing something. And by the way, as a business owner myself, and in the world of sales, like my production, my activity does breed results. But at the same point in time, I need those moments of inactivity to recharge, to become mentally sound, like, and not I wouldn't say fight or flight, but just like this you phrase it in the right way of just like constantly being on, being aware, being plugged into something. Like it is important to unplug and truly unplug, not just to say, okay, I'm not watching MSNBC today. I'm not sitting there watching CNN or Fox. Like I'm just listening to a podcast in my ear. Like it's like truly unplugging. Hey folks, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has truly changed my life, and that is Cardio Miracle, our incredible studio sponsor. Now, I'll be honest, when I first heard about Cardio Miracle and their claims about improving heart health, I was skeptical. But after using it for just about 2 months, I was absolutely blown away by the results. First, my blood pressure went from being consistently around 140/90 to a much more healthier and manageable 120/80. And my resting heart rate dropped from the low 70s to the high 50s. And I couldn't believe it. But the benefits didn't stop there. I started sleeping better, and I felt more energized at the gym, and my heart felt the best it's felt in years. And it's not just me. Hundreds of you, our amazing listeners, have reached out to share your own incredible experiences with Cardio Miracle. So, what is Cardio Miracle, and how does it work? It's a carefully crafted supplement that harnesses the power of nitric oxide to support optimal heart function. So, by increasing nitric oxide levels in your blood, Cardio Miracle helps relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and it protects your heart from damage. It's like giving your heart the support it needs to function at its best. And here's the best part. We've got an exclusive offer just for you, our loyal listeners here at the Brian Nichols Show. When you head over to cardiomiracle.com and use code TBNS at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% discount on your order. Plus, with their 100% money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, if you're ready to take control of your heart health and experience the life-changing benefits of Cardio Miracle for yourself, just click the link in the show notes or video description. Trust me, your heart will thank you. And don't wait another day to prioritize your health. Join the tens of thousands of folks who have already discovered the Cardio Miracle difference. Head to cardiomiracle.com now and use code TBNS for 15% off your order. Your journey to a happier and healthier heart starts today. And now, let's get back to the show.
You need a break from decision fatigue. That's what wears us down. What is your best time of day, Brian, for you to really focus? Like if you said, when am I going to be at my best? And that's when you want to do and be focused and present, because you'll learn the most.
And I don't know if I have an answer for that, honestly, because I am one of those people who I will wake up first thing in the morning and I am just go. I'm working out. I'm trying to, start getting my daily tasks lined up. Trying to go through my different projects that I have on my plate. Like I just, and then, maintaining your personal health and your fitness, and you're trying to be a dad and part of the family and a husband. It's just like all these things. I don't know. Like,
Write down your
I,
top
I really,
goals first thing in the morning, what you want to accomplish. Because you do a lot. You're very accomplished. So the question is, what are the 3 most important things you want to accomplish that day? And make sure they're done. And then work in some fun stuff like 4 books, 10 minutes on audiobooks where you can go walk for your own peace of mind. And that way you're not overwhelming yourself. Like you put something a little challenging, maybe some Seneca, and you put in like, I'm doing a Range, which is a really fun book with great stories that I can then take deep into that are very light and easy. And then I go back to a hard book for 10 minutes and then a soft book, because it's kind of like cross training. You can't just go all out, and your mind is the same way. It's a muscle and you're just working it out.
Well, yeah, no, I love shows like this, Will, because it's a chance for me. Like most of my shows are political, right? And just Elf in the Room. We talk policy. I just had 2 back-to-back shows I recorded before you hopped on.
Okay.
One of them was focused on like a Supreme Court case. One of them was talking about immigration. Like I'm living in this world a lot, like all day, pretty much.
Yes.
And then on top of that, my day job and the stressors of all that. And it's one of those things for me when I have a guest like you, is that it really helps me take a step back, but also I hope it helps the audience take a step back. I mean, we just went through one of, and I think it's fair to say officially, one of the most like contentious elections of our lifetime. We literally had a sitting president, or not sitting, a former sitting president, but now who's running again for elected office, who became president, almost get shot and killed twice, right? Like the tensions were high. It has been an insane election. And like, I see this continuing to this day of folks both on the left and the right, just they're battling it out. I have been guilty of playing a role in that, because that is what my show is. My show is to try to help bring people to the table to talk about these very important issues, because it impacts us on a daily basis. And yet, Will, we got to take a step back. Like, having you on the show, I've had my buddy Josh Hewlett on the show, and we're talking about the importance of like physical fitness and like taking care of yourself physically. But what we're talking about today, I'm not going to say it's more important than the physical side, but the mental side, right? Like, if you're mentally not there, not comfortable, not feeling like you can take a break, right? Then that's showing that there's something wrong. And I'm like, in these conversations that I'm, today with you, I feel that. Like I'm feeling like, okay, we really need to, at the show, maybe even, and in yours truly personally, I need to like recalibrate a little bit.
That's a perfect word. Recalibrate yourself. Pull yourself back. Say, I'm going to focus on Brian's health today, because Brian takes care of himself. Then he can make great decisions for his daughter and his wife and his family, because he's not overstressed. And you got to reduce. Like if you overwork out, what happens? You get sore.
Oh, yeah. Can't lift my arm, Will.
Correct. Yep. Or you just start to get sick because you just have too much going on. And it's the same. The food you eat, the nutrient dense, is the information density. So I limit myself to what I'm going to consume each day and what I consume, because you don't want brain junk food.
And how do you decipher that? But like, how do you figure out what you're going to consume?
So every morning, I basically have it. I do 20 minutes when I first get up. I listen to a couple things. Like I listen to like the Daily Show or the Quips or the late night people. So I get some jokes in there. That way I get some funny stuff. I just kind of laughing, busting out, picking on people. That's fun for me. And then it takes me 20 minutes. I get up at 4:30. I walk the dogs 2 miles every day. I've done that for about 15 years. And I listen to 4 audiobooks. I do 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And I rotate them, because Seneca's talking about walking past the Coliseum. And he goes, all of these men are focused on how the athletes train their bodies. But how few men train their minds? That's no different than today. We worship the bodies of the gladiators, like the football players, and no one worships the mind. Like nothing's changed in that. You need to walk away and take a break with your mind from all that. Like there's nothing that changes there. It's nothing. And it's so eloquently put together. And he talks about a clown that was blind living with him. And he says, if I need a clown, I can just laugh at myself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I say some stupid stuff. And so he's like, I don't need a clown to live with me to be funny. I laugh at myself all day for the stupid thing. So we humanizing ourselves and then adding some fun stuff to the books. Like I really enjoy Range or The Undoing Project, because then you learn about this person woke up. He woke up in a war zone, or he woke up in Nazi Germany, Nazi occupied France. And so, I'm like, I got it pretty easy. So it helps reset your situation to say, yes, it's contentious. Am I being the best I can be and be the most positive influence I can? I rescue orangutans and I fly overseas and do stuff like that. And this new administration has cut off all that funding and it stinks. So I made a donation to help the elephants I was going to go visit. So yes, I could be mad all day, but I can't. I have to focus and say, I can do something personally about it. And that's what I'm going to do. And I can make personal choices for my clients and prepare them with words, phrases, and effective, it's called effective forecasting. I can help shape how they're going to see things, because I know that they're going to be overwhelmed with, like, should I be too bullish or should I be too bearish? And I try to smooth things out. So I do that for myself, and I do that first thing in the morning for 2 hours every single morning before I start the day. I started at 4:30 and by 6:30, 7 o'clock. And then I have some mental models I'll share with you too. I'll send them over so you kind of have a gist of that.
That would be great, because man, and let me talk more about my personal struggle, right? Because I am very much like I somebody called me the modern day Dale Carnegie, but for politics. And I was like, oh, thanks. I appreciate that. 'Cause I really do. I like to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. I like to talk with people. I want to understand how they work. At the same point in time, I have an agenda at times, right? I have a bias, and we all have bias, right? So, and that right there, Will, like, how do we bridge that line? How do we bridge the line of I want to be the best version of myself. I want to be, the Dale Carnegie of modern day, where I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to force my ideas on people, but rather understand who they are and try to help them see my ideas in the different lens. So maybe it resonates more with them. And yet there are certain topics, right? And like, we don't have to jump on one side or the other for today's conversation, but look at the heated topics over the past 5 years, right? COVID, the war in Ukraine, the 2024 election. You mentioned the federal bureaucracies right now getting all the funding cut, like all these issues, right? That are they get people riled up. And I find myself, and this is where, again, where I'm kind of having moments of self-reflection live on the show with you. Like, I find myself as much wanting to engage in a respectful dialogue, but at the same point in time to promote a certain perspective. What's the best way to balance those while maintaining my mental health, while not going and having friends that I haven't talked to in person in 10 years get, pissed off at Brian because he posts a thing that they disagree with, right? And then like I don't want to make people upset. That's the opposite of Dale Carnegie. But at the same point in time, like, I feel I should plant my flag on certain issues because they really matter to me. Help me out here, Will. Like, where?
This is my wheelhouse. This is what my core is. This might be the best question someone's ever asked me, Brian. This is where I started that search, because I'm born on the spectrum, so everything is just really logical to me. First thing you do is you hug them, shake their hand, you let them know you're here, you want to listen, and you have compassion, and you're willing to listen regardless of anything else. It de-escalates everything, and it says, okay. And then you listen for whatever that claim is. Socrates did it, but this is through the neuroscience side of it and the cognitive sciences. You listen for the claim, you repeat the claim back to somebody, so you make sure you hear them. And then you got to clarify the definitions. Your definition, Brian, of working out, and mine, I'm 52, you're probably 30, or might be different. What? Wish you were 30?
I wish I was 30. My back does too.
Yeah. So when I was 30, working out with weights was a different definition than today. You know what I mean?
Right.
So clarifying those definitions and then using some fun, smiling, and I was like, I want to hear you're genuine. These are the first 3 steps. because and then you calibrate that. Once you do that, step 4 is is identifying the confidence. If we're talking about something like, I think it's going to be a great market, or these tax cuts, or I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm genuinely interested. And I already know what I know because I do this mental practices and I write. You have to get them to get to the part where they're actually identifying the confidence. They'll say 60%, 70%, 100%. It's like, okay, if it's 60, why not 100? Because now you're interested. Once you're interested in someone, they like, okay, they're listening to me, and I'm not talking over them. I'm listening, so I'm talking 20%, and they're doing 80%. Now you have genuine dialogue where the person feels relaxed. And once you just say, what would be the reason for this confidence? And they'll say, well, tax cuts are good for the economy. Okay, great. You got to stick to one. You can't just be all over the road. It's like kind of like, you can't run a pass play and a run play and punt the ball at the same time. And sometimes people get a little off, and I'm like, look, if I'm asking you who's your favorite quarterback, you don't say, what do you think about apples? And try to have a little fun with that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm like, hey, just one topic at a time. I'm not as fast as you, because you need to stick to that point. We often allow ourselves to get off point. So I have these things to keep us kind of honed. Once you do that, then you ask them, how do you evaluate this claim of taxes? This is where the eyes will actually start to dilate, because they've never thought about it. Like, what does cutting taxes mean? Does it mean cutting corporations, this and that? And they don't, because most people don't understand the flow. The generations before, like I already have this. Once you do that, that person actually has to come up with a thought. And it's called the illusion of explanatory depth. And when you look at this, the beginning it's naive realism. We all think we know a lot about whatever subject, but one minute you're telling me you know how to solve Ukraine, the next minute you're telling me you know all about chips and semiconductors.
We're all armchair quarterbacks, Will. Come on.
And without saying that directly, you're asking that. And I have like a guy who's a shrimp farmer, and he's like, well, why aren't the oil lower? I'm like, if I were you and you asked me, why don't I just make the perfect size shrimp, make the perfect amount, and sell them at the price I want to sell them at? And he's like, well, you can't do that. I'm like, there you go. Now you're starting to think about the processes so that you don't get whipped up on what the people say on TV. This process. And then once they kind of come up with it, you say, how do you evaluate your process, your methodology? Can you explain the process to me? You're not challenging them. You're not giving them a hard. That's the first time in their lives, I bet you, they've been asked that question, where they don't know. And you can tell they're thinking. And once they start to think about it, they go, maybe I don't know as much. Maybe I should tone it down a bit. But you got to be gentle, because you don't want to challenge somebody and make them feel stupid. And you just.
And by the way, that's Dale Carnegie 101. That's 100% right there. I forget the specific quote in the book, but he's talking about there's a gentleman at a dinner party, and they're talking about some excerpt from the Bible, and the host of the party says the quote, but he doesn't say it well. Mm-hmm. And one of the buddies of Dale Carnegie is he's I think he's like a scholar when it comes to like religious texts and stuff or whatever. They're at this party.
I find them fascinating too, by the way. That's fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. But like Dale Carnegie, I think in the book he's like, well, you knew that wasn't right, but you didn't say anything. And the guy was like, what good would it come from me telling him he's wrong in his own home, right? And that for me, that was a profound quote, because I, as a salesperson, have to do the same thing when I'm going to sell a new solution. You don't go in and tell them that their baby's ugly, right? You have to almost unsell. You have to understand. Yeah. How did you buy this baby? Did you buy this baby? If you bought this baby, where on earth are you buying babies? That's a different conversation for a different day. But like, to understand what got them to make the decision in the first place, so I understand how to guide them when they're making a decision the next time, right? And notice the choice of words I did there. It's not to force them to buy what I want them to buy. It's to help them re-examine the way that they bought last time relative to how they're going to buy next time. And for me, and you let's take a step forward to the world of politics, right? Like, this is where the tensions get so heated, right? Because for every person, Will, that they will enter into a conversation in good faith, and they want to actually like have a dialogue, there's also equal numbers of folks. Well, maybe it's not equal, but I see a lot of it. And you'll see where I'm going with this question. I see a lot of folks who do not approach conversations, do not approach dialogue in good faith, right? They will be the person who will, they'll try to make you feel bad in your own home, calling you wrong, right? And they don't care about the person behind who they're talking to. They care about being right. So I guess in this mentality of being right versus being effective, when you look at people who are, let's just say, not necessarily the best of faith actors, right? How do we have conversations with folks like that? Or is the better question, do we have dialogue and conversations with those folks?
Yes. No. I identify 3 different types of people.
Okay.
You have con artists. You can't engage in good faith with the con artist, right? So the first thing you get with them, if you want to have some fun in practice, I always say contempt for the con man, because they're dangerous. They're the ones polluting the well from up top. They're bad people. So if you want to have a little fun with them, you have every right to, because they're thieves. Then you look at people and you say, I have compassion for the con. So if someone's selling messages, you have to get it out of them in a polite way by asking them questions. You have people that are in the cult, which can be more difficult to kind of maneuver around because they're going to follow the cult leader. And if you look at cults, which is kind of something I did, you have a mix of people that will drink the Kool-Aid and kill themselves, but then you have a portion that won't. And those are the people that, if you can identify them, are going to be more willing to open up, because our identity, and it's called identity protective cognition. This is the core. People 100 years ago or even longer, you had to be a part of a group to survive.
Yep.
You just had to. And so if you, Brian, are in a group and you're a certain way, you like to identify the group. And if you start to have thoughts that are a little different, we often don't say that. It's called pluralistic ignorance. And I joke with my buddy in Indiana about this. I said, you're in a fraternity, you look around, there's 30 guys, and they're like, everybody drink this, run down the street, shirts off, whatever. And all 30 of you are going, I hope no one else wants to do this. But you're all doing it because the authority says it. That's pluralistic ignorance. And when I said that to me, I said, yeah, you got a point there, because now I'm connecting with him and he's laughing like none of us wanted to drink that 10th shot. You know what I mean? None of us wanted to run outside in that freezing cold Indiana weather. So once you kind of relate to people, and you don't necessarily have to tell them the concept, but you can relate to them, you can start to build a connection with them. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what that's like, because our identity, when it's under threat, we automatically protect ourselves. Like if you go to your kid and say, clean your room, they're like, I'm not going to do it, because you're challenging who they are as a person. And that's very important to notice that. But if you're gentle and you listen and you joke and you have a little fun with them and you can relate to something funny, because we all did stupid things with our friends through peer pressure, then you open people up. So
boy, oh boy, do I have some stories about doing stupid things with friends, but that's a different conversation and a different podcast, mind you, for a different day. Absolutely. Will, this dialogue has really been it's been insightful for me, but it's also been eye-opening, because it's just funny how things happen. I had posted a post in a group that I'm in, and it's one of those groups where everybody kind of just they sing the same song, right? They're all singing from the same sheet of music. Gotcha. Very much what you'd call groupthink, right? Yes. And I found myself starting to disagree. I don't know if disagree is the right word. It's just real life has helped me start to re-examine values, but not so much. Let me rephrase that. Not so much re-examine values, re-examine applications of values. So like I am, from a textbook definition, a small L libertarian. I believe in the ideas of don't hurt people and don't take their stuff, right? My good friend, Matt Gibby, he wrote a book called Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Stuff. And I read that book and I'm like, I think this is me. Like, and he, by the way, is a huge Rush fan. And Neil Peart, who is the drummer, he is a huge libertarian as well. So like the book is written half storytelling and half, like half philosophy, right? It's like half telling the story of Neil Peart and Rush, and then half telling the story of how Matt in the book found his values. And in this group that I'm in on Facebook, a lot of the folks are both the small L, meaning they're not identifying to a party, right? And then big L libertarian, where they find themselves as part of the libertarian party. And I have definitely started to ruffle some feathers with folks in the big L libertarian movement, because I very gently have started, maybe not gently now. So, and again, this conversation has helped me reframe things a little bit. I have been poking a little bit, because there seems to be almost this mentality of living in this contrived utopia of, well, no, the world's not the way we want it to be, but man, if it was, our ideas would be awesome, right? And I've tried to help rein them back in a little bit of saying, okay, but we are in this thing called the real world, right? So like, let's talk about real wins we can get, real skins on the wall that we can look to and say, aha, we did this, right? And I know I have been more confrontational in recent months, and that's shame on me, because I as we're talking today, I hear the frustrations that I have had, in the way you're explaining how to, through this almost like Socratic approach, right? Of leading with questions, being more effective, because it really makes the person you're talking to have to not so much justify, because I'm not looking them to justify, but at least like I need them to articulate. And if you don't understand what you believe in, how can you present to other people what you believe in? So it almost feels like, and here's where I'm going with this thought, it almost feels like for folks in the world of politics, specifically in the seat that I find myself in of being a political commentator, but also trying to have these overtly non-political conversations, is that the best plan of attack seems to be just asking questions, right? To not necessarily go in with planting your flag, I believe X, Y, and Z, but rather say, here's a topic. Let's talk. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a perfect example. I mean, it's like my brother-in-law's a mechanic. And I said, well, just fix it. It's not how it's, I want a solution, but he's the person that's going to tell you how it's done. And what's in our mind of how it's done and what actually how it's done are different. So once you get a person to put themselves as the mechanic or the shrimp farmer or the construction worker, now all of a sudden that person has to think. And that's why when we talked about sales, asking a person, if you were the advisor, what would you change? How would you approach it? Now all of a sudden they're telling you what to do.
Yep.
I mean, literally, well, I would do that. Okay, thanks. I just sold you.
Yep.
Because I just put them in my shoes. And okay, thank you for sharing. That's important. I'll make sure I do that. Now, I mean, that's sales. That's winning people over, right? Dale Carnegie, win-win.
Yep.
And that's all you try to do is win people over through creating a dialogue that allows them to open up and feel safe, that their views, regardless of anything else, and as they tell you that story, they're going to realize that they don't know as much. And that's how you build a connection. Like, oh, you know what? I probably should have thought deeper about this before I said anything. And that builds good conversations, because that's all we want.
And let me ask you this, Will, because like, what do we do when we hear people who are they're not the con men that you articulated earlier, right? Yes. But like they're just everyday average people. And what if they are promoting ideas? And again, I'm not specifying the idea, just let's just say not even a bad idea, a dangerous idea, right? And whatever that dangerous idea may be, but like, is there a responsibility for us to say this is dangerous? Like time out. Like, yes, I want to understand you. I want to have empathy and kind of walk in your shoes to understand how you got to where you are. And frankly, to see if you understand how you got to where you are. Right. But if it's a dangerous idea, like if my 2-year-old is running towards the road, I could ask her like, hey, honey, like, why are you running right now? Why are you running towards that road? No, I'm going to run. I'm going to grab her and pull her back from the road. So like,
your wife's going to kick your ass.
Oh, she sure will too. But like that right there, that's also where I'm a little stuck. Help me there. Like, what do we do with those like, truly, not just like rhetorically, but truly dangerous ideas?
Well, I'll give you an example. As soon as the new administration won, you had people who wanted to just put everything in crypto. And to me, that could be very dangerous because it went from 60 to 100. If you have a short-term goal, maybe that works for you. But if your long-term goals are something else, you could lose your shirt. It could drop, and it has dropped about 30%. So trying to be in front of them and asking them, what are we trying to accomplish here? What is your long-term goal? What is your short? Because I know people who lost 50, 60, 70% of their money during the crash after the stock market went up during 2020. And then they put all their money in all these crazy tech stocks like Zoom at 500. Now it's 100.
Yep.
That's dangerous. And I guess I try to relate to that. But if you're talking danger in terms of other things, I don't come across it as much in my daily life because most of my clients know me, or friends that I'm in, or people don't necessarily open up. They know how I think. So people sometimes won't say anything because they know I'm going to drag it out of them. And what would normally be a 2-minute conversation is a 30-minute conversation because I really want to get to the heart of the issue. And often, we can't play doctor. We don't know more than the doctor, someone who went to school for 10 years and does all this, but yet you'll go on the weekend. And this is what's called the illusion of information adequacy. We research it for the weekend. And now we're like, spouting off things that are dangerous, let's say, like an Aaron Rodgers saying things. I'm like, Aaron, I went in my backyard through the football over the weekend. Now I'm a professional football player. Like, that mindset is dangerous and spouting that stuff off, but that's what he thinks. He's like, I read a few things. I went to Cal. I'm like, you got CTE, brother. Like, but anyway, I'm just saying that could be dangerous with some of the things he's spouting off. And I would love to have a debate and open him up. But that is something that I guess could be dangerous with some of the things they say and spouting things off. But I guess it depends on the person and my comfort level, and obviously what type of danger that they're spouting off.
And by the way, like, I mean, interrupt, but it sounds like one of the things that you said there without overtly saying it is to understand the level of impact you can have in actually changing that person's mind, or at least helping them see things they haven't seen. You mentioned like the folks that right? They know you, right? They know how to be able to have a conversation with you. And they by and large should know what you believe versus someone like an Aaron Rodgers who doesn't know you from Adam, right? To be able to have a dialogue with him and to change his mind would be much more difficult because there is no fundamental level of trust already established with that know, like, and trust, right? So like, I think that the first course of action would be identify your circle, right? Identify where you can have the most impact and then start there. Don't go out, planting your flag on the top of the mountain, hoping that you're going to get everybody's attention when everybody's, miles and miles away. Like you need to find a close knit circle first where you can start to have some impact and start to make positive changes and then work your way outward. Is that fair?
Yes. And just if you walk up to somebody and you give them a hug and say, look, we're going to be friends no matter what. Let's talk about it. Let's open up. You can make people feel more comfortable because you don't want to come into anything standoffish. And I find that a lot. I'll hug somebody or shake their hand and say, it's so good to meet you. Just little things like that matter to people because now they're like, hey, this person's, you kind of created a little bit of like, okay, we have some comfort here. Comfort is the number one thing. If you don't have any comfort, that's where you get one person at the gym screaming about something else. Oh, I'm on this bench. And you're like, you always have the crazy people that do that. But most people, if you say, hey, if you approach them the right way, they're like, oh, come on, work in with me or whatever the case. You know how it is at the gym. Most people, if you treat them right, they're happy to share things with you.
Yep.
And that's how you have the mindset.
All right. Well, we are well over time. I could keep going with this conversation forever because this is like, likewise. This is just the stuff that it does we're removing ourselves from the heated conversations. And again, like for myself, after a very intense political season, I know a lot of folks who listen to the show after a very intense political season, like this is a show we needed. We need to at times just take a step back to really re-examine things and back to the main theme of today's show, right? Control what you can control. And I think, when we look at the way that we can approach not just what to think, but how to think and how to have dialogues with people to really get to the root issues and causes of disagreement, like that is imperative in creating a better society. Because if we continue to just point fingers at other people and say, you're a bad person because you voted for this candidate, or you're a bad person because you like X, Y, and Z, or whatever it may be, the ism, the issue of the day, we're not going to be able to come together as a society moving forward and have some real positive changes that we can look to and say, yeah, we accomplished this. We did this together. It turns into, my America and your America. And I don't want that. I want
America.
to be able,
That's right.
right? Like I want to be able to have a dialogue.
Yep, that's exactly right. We're in this
All right.
together.
100%. 100%. Well, let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and let you bring us home today. Final thoughts for the audience. What would you like to leave the audience with? And of course, where can folks go ahead, reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation off air?
Basically, you can look me up, Will R. Young. I'm available. I'm not able to share the firm I'm at for compliance purposes. The first thing you want to do is focus on your own mental health, your own wellness. Focus on the dichotomy of what you can control. If you know what you can control, you will stop allowing external factors to bother you. That is one of the most important things. And I relate that to the markets, whether it's the markets going up and down or afraid. Investing, you think of your short-term and long-term goals. And think one of the most important things I say to myself every day, a year from now, you wish you would have started today. That is one of the most important things to say. How am I going to make myself a little bit better each day? And that's who I want to be. I want to be the best possible version of myself. And I use the psychology and the meditations and the stoicism and surfing as my peace of mind to get out in the water away from all the technology. So look out for me, reach out for me if you want to talk. I'm happy to help people. And you'll get a little philosophy, you'll get a little surfing, and you get a lot of market information if you work with me.
There we go. Love it. Well, Will, this has been a great conversation. Definitely part one. I think we're going to have you back on at the very least quarterly to have some just touch points, right? Because as much as I love to dig into the fray of all that's happening in our world, I also like to just take a step back and talk about the stuff that actually matters. And yes, the stuff that we can control. So folks, if you got some value from today's conversation, please do me a favor. First and foremost, give it a share. When you do, tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. Also, if you're joining us here on your favorite video version of the show, be that YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, wherever it may be, head down below into the comments. Let us know your thoughts. And of course, ask good questions. Let's keep it high level. And of course, control what you can control. Otherwise, you can go ahead and find yours truly on your favorite social media apps like Instagram, Facebook, and X.com. You can find me at B Nichols Liberty. Will, anything else you want to leave the audience with today as we say goodbye?
No, I thank you all for listening today, and I hope you just take a little bit of time to yourself and focus on what you can control. Thanks a lot.
Here. All right, with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on The Brian Nichols Show for Will Young. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.